I have started the recordings. I will just say that this is a virtual meeting of the Municipal Authority. As we have been meeting for the last year, we are meeting virtually, and as such, we are taking public comment one of 4 ways. You can make public comment by dropping off your public comment in the blue drop box at the main entrance of the township building. That's the entrance where the library is, the steps going up to the library. There's a box at the bottom of the steps right off to the right-hand side there. The blue drop box, you're welcome to make public comment. I will say I checked the box prior to the meeting and there was no public comment in the box. You can also make public comment during the meeting by raising your hand, either by the computer screen. There's an opportunity to do so at the bottom, and also by phone. There's a code that you can enter to raise your hand for that. If by chance that you have trouble raising your hand and you want to make a comment, you can send a notice to publiccomment@newtowntownship.org, publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. Public comment is one word, so is Newtown Township. If you are going to do that, please make sure that you include your screen name that you're logged in with. As if you're calling in by a phone number, please make sure you've included the phone number. It would be helpful if you also give your real name and address so that we can make sure that we bring you over accordingly. If by chance you just want to make public comment, you may make public comment in writing to publiccomment@newtowntownship.org, and that will also be shared with the board. Mr. Sweeney, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. I'd like to call the Newtown Township, Delaware County Municipal Authority meeting to order for May 3rd, 2021. Roll call. John Weaver.
Here.
Marquet.
Here.
Kalika Savant. Maria Kane is not here. She called me earlier today. Operations Manager Stephen Neese.
Here.
Engineer Mr. David Porter.
Here.
And Counsel J. Michael Sheridan.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take a moment of silence in lieu of the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you. Everyone's had an opportunity to look at the agenda for this evening's meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Minutes. Everyone's had an opportunity to take a look at the minutes from the April 5th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes of April 5th, 2021.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. There are no announcements. Public comment? Mr. Neese, do we have any public comment?
I'm checking. I do not see any public comment. There was none in the blue box. There's none in the email, and I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Fund transfer. Make a motion that we consider approving the transfer of $20,065.97 from the escrow fund to the operating fund. This money represents the reimbursement of escrow money expended from the operating fund for underfunded escrow accounts. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second the motion.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Treasurer's report. Everyone's had an opportunity to take a look at the treasurer's report. Do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report as submitted?
Motion to approve the treasurer's report as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Payments. Not too bad. There's only 7 tonight. 11.1, I make a motion that we approve the bills on check register A dated May 3rd, 2021 totaling $175,175.88. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. 11.2, I make a motion, we consider approving a payment from the bond totaling $8,755 to Herbert MacCombie Engineering for Part 2 permit work, public sewer project relative to the Camelot Service Area construction. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 11.3, make a motion, we approve a payment from the bond totaling $163.74 to Herbert MacCombie Engineering relative to the Springton Point Service Area construction. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 11.4, make a motion, we consider approve a payment from the bonds totaling $1,836.86 to Herbert MacCombie Engineers for work on the 537 public sewer project relative to the Ashford Service Area. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 11.5,
Stephen,
make a
can you
motion.
scroll
I'm sorry?
down? Could they scroll the screen down? Thank
Oh.
you.
There you go. 11.5, I make a motion, we approve a payment from the bonds totaling $1,813.70 to Michael Sheridan for professional services associated with the 537 public sewer project build out. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. 11.6, I make a motion, we approve release number 15 for J.O. and Bradley for the general contract work associated with the Ashford Service Area public sewer project totaling $28,837.87, leaving a balance of $563,782.88. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. And 11.7, I make a motion, we consider approving the payment from the bonds totaling $3,064.77 to Dixieland Energy for a propane tank installation associated with the 537 sewer build out project. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you all. Engineers report. Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will start out with the sewer project update as usual. So for the Ashford service area, you saw that there was a release on the agenda, which was approved for J.O. and Bradley construction. That release was entirely retainage monies. It leaves a balance in the retainage of about $1,200. That's reflective of what's been physically completed on the job. There are, I think, 3 punch list items they have to address, which I was told that they're remobilizing within the next 1 to 2 weeks to come out and address both the Camelot service area and these 3 minor issues in the Ashford service area, as well as some lawn restoration in some of the easement areas. So we are still waiting. We had a phone conversation with J.O. and Bradley last Tuesday, we being Jamie MacCombie and I, and reiterated that their request for payout of the balance of that contract amount was not going to be honored, and we're not going to meet with them until they provide us with a justification and a breakdown of what they felt they're owed as far as delays and so forth. So they're supposed to be working on pulling that together and getting that to us. For the Camelot service area update, finally, we have PECO has completed the gas service connection for the Camelot Lane pump station generator. The electric service, the cable delivery is supposed to be sometime this week. So I've reached out to PECO to pin down definitively what the date of that connection is going to be. we've been working with the Springton Woods HOA with regard to the plantings and aesthetics for completion of that pump station. That really concludes the update for the public sewer project.
Anybody have any questions regarding the sewer project? Okay. Onward and upward, Mr. Porter.
Okay, quick update on the Melmark School pump stations. We did receive a public sewer connection permit application for the 2 pump stations they're going to construct. I anticipate having that reviewed and that approval out this week. It's for all intents and purposes a formality for our record keeping. We've already reviewed and approved their site sanitary sewer plans. So this will allow them to get started with construction of those stations and tie into the public sewer system. Ellis Preserve, Equus, Sector 1, Phase 2 residential. I did have an opportunity to meet with and speak with our special counsel. He was reaching out to Equus's counsel to work out the agreements for the sanitary sewer for the various phases of development out there. And with that, we have notified the DEP that we are ongoing with that process and ironing that out. So recall that the sewage planning approval was contingent upon us providing that report and getting those agreements, copies of those agreements to the DEP. So they are aware we are working on that. With that, construction has commenced for site and sanitary work as of last week. 314 Summit Avenue. So this has been going on for quite some time. This, if you recall, we deployed flow meters through the assistance with KBX Golden. We monitored flow upstream and through the property at 314 Summit Avenue to monitor to see if there was a significant amount of inflow and infiltration into the sanitary sewer system, which is parallel to a small stream that traverses the rear portion of that property. Looking at the flow data, we've had about 5 rainfall events over that 3-month period where we had greater than an inch of runoff. And that's significant in that whenever you have more than an inch of runoff, that's really going to drive more potential for inflow into a sanitary sewer system. So in other words, if we only have a small amount of rain, a lot of times it just gets trapped in puddles or sits in a lawn or a field area and gets soaked up by the soil and there's not much runoff. But once you get into that 1 inch of rainfall area, there's more potential for runoff. And with that, stream elevations rise, and with the stream elevation rising adjacent to where the sanitary sewer system is, it's more concerned that there would be an inflow and infiltration issue into the sanitary sewer system. So looking through the data over that 3-month period, the peaks where there was a rainfall event greater than 1 inch, those peaks tended to be a little bit higher on the 3 to 4 fold or 3 or 4 times what the average flow in the system there would be. Now, keep in mind that there is always some degree of peak flow during wet weather events that's built into the design. The DEP's Domestic Wastewater Facilities Manual requires you to, depending on how big the drainage area is, put a peaking factor into your design so your pipes can handle it, your pump stations can handle it. When you start getting above like a 1.5 to 2 times peaking factor above your average flow, when you see rainfall events, it's more of a concern. Some of the lesser rainfall events, that being less than an inch of rainfall, did see some peaking, but not as significant as the larger rainfall events. So there definitely is a correlation. It's unclear where it's coming from, whether it be infiltration into the sanitary sewer main from from the stream, or whether it's, the water level comes up and somebody has a lateral that doesn't have a cap on it and we're getting water inundated over that lateral. So it's difficult to pin it down to one exact thing. However, I did make a site visit back out to the property on April 9th, just to get a visual and take some measurements to see if there has been any significant erosion of that stream bank on the property. By my measurements and by my field observation, it does not appear that there's a significant amount of erosion from, going back to September, October through present. That's not to say that, the proximity of where the bank is today to the existing sanitary sewer main is not a concern. It definitely is a concern, but in my opinion, it's not as high a priority. In other words, we don't have to go out and start surveying and getting permits and put it out to bid tomorrow. I do think it would be prudent for the authority to start seeking permits for something as far as a bank stabilization or a bank restoration in that area to keep the stream from meandering into the sanitary sewer system. So in my conversations with Joe over the past few weeks and months, I had kind of looked at what a preliminary cost for hard cost for construction would be to do some kind of a stream bank stabilization, whether it be gabion baskets, and so the authority understands a gabion basket is nothing more than a wire mesh with rocks filled, and it's basically a building block created out of a wire mesh and stone. So what that does is installing that along the stream bank, it armors the stream bank from erosion. The other alternative that we can look at is to do maybe some stone riprap lining of that bank along with some live stakes. And the live stakes, what that does is you do live willow cuttings or some other species of plant. You plug them into the bank and they start to take root, and the root system holds that bank in place. So there is some existing vegetation out there. There are gaps in that vegetation, and it's not doing the best job in holding the bank in place at this point in time. So that said, looking at implementing something like a gabion basket protection for that stabilization for the wall, for the stream bank, that cost would probably be in the neighborhood of like a $90,000 to $100,000 construction project. Engineering, permitting, and bidding for that particular project would probably be in like the $8,000 to $9,000 range to do field topo, create a base plan, a design plan, get any wetland delineations completed, complete a Chapter 105 stream bank restoration permit application, and get that permit to put the project out to bid. In addition to that, what I would recommend, if the authority is inclined to approve that and move forward with the permitting and that at this time, would be when it comes time to bid it, put an alternate or add alternate to that bid to do some televising and or lining of the pipes in that area to try to minimize the infiltration and inflow to the greatest extent possible. By putting it as an add alternate, it doesn't necessarily have to be completed. If the price is a little bit too high, the authority does not have to authorize that portion of the contract. So I'm open to answer any questions the authority may have at this time.
Anybody have any questions? Dave, do you have an estimate on what the number looked like if we go with the vegetation and some lining rock, or is that something you need to do some research on?
I think we'll get a better handle on that, Joe, once we topo it and look to see physically, how much room we have to either fill or excavate back to complete that. I think doing the vegetation, we can still do vegetation with the gabion baskets. It's just not going to be as natural looking with the gabion baskets there. If you're standing up in the yard, you're not going to see the baskets. They're going to be down in the stream bed. But you could still do live stakes. In fact, we just bid something similar in Avondale Borough where it's a little bit of a larger creek system, where we looked at putting the gabion baskets and live stakes in, which the DEP will allow you to do that as an alternate. They prefer a more natural bank restoration. And so the township's aware for MS4 permitting and MS4 credits, you would not get credit for doing a gabion basket.
So let me ask you this question. How much money would we have to invest today to get a pretty good idea of what the cost would be for us to do the vegetation versus the baskets? Like, what would it cost us to do the analysis to make that decision?
I would think it would probably be around $4,000, $4,500. I mean, we'd probably be into the survey for about $1,500 to $2,000. Going through the permit applications, creating the base plan and all that, we're probably looking at around $4,000, $4,500.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the expenditure of $5,000 to our engineer to provide the board with the advice as to which of the two options best suits our needs at that location. Do we go with the bank system with the baskets, or do we go with more vegetation? I think that 5,000 is an investment that we should make just to figure out which of the two options is the better option for us to take. Do I have a second on the motion?
I would second that motion, definitely.
Do I have any questions or comments? Council's leaning in, so go ahead. Mike?
You're muted, Mike. You're muted.
Got it. Thank you.
Do you have any input on this?
I do not at this time.
Okay, all right. So
Is this a budgeted cost? Is this coming out of a budgeted line item?
I would take it out of CapEx versus an operating line item. Would have to come out of CapEx.
Okay.
It's a capital investment. Part of the capital investment.
Okay.
There are no other. Go ahead.
In short, it's not necessarily budgeted, but we'll do a budget adjustment accordingly.
Okay.
There are no other questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would make note that we have two people with their hands raised.
Okay. Go ahead, let them in.
Okay.
Sure what we're doing here. Go ahead.
Ms. Kovacs, you should be able to speak.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Kovacs, and I live at 104 Springhouse Lane in the Springhouse community. And I was just going back to the sewer project update, and I was hoping that we would be able to have an update on what the situation is for the possibility of waivers for those of us that fall into that situation, without going into what the situation is, because we all know what the situation is. So
I believe this is part, and Mike, chime in whenever you want. I believe you're part of the group that is exceeding the 150-foot mark, and we had to get a clarification as relates to the real ordinance, both at the township and DEP. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we asked those residents who were affected by that to put a waiver in writing to our council so that could be reviewed.
correct.
Did you do that?
Yes.
She did.
Okay. Is this going to be addressed, Mike, under new business when you?
Yes, it is, Joe.
Oh, under new business? Okay.
Okay. We'll deal with it under new business when we get there regarding the waivers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And the other one, Stephen?
Ms. Mazzone? You should have-
This is Nancy Kerman. First, Dave, I want to thank you for your follow through and your consistent updates. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you taking this on to address it. I just want to state a couple of things. One is that the vegetation in the wintertime does die off. So I don't know how that affects anything, but I did want to, it's only there in the warmer months. Second, I don't have any preference. I appreciate you looking at both of those options. I just want you to know, I just want it corrected and the bank stabilized. But I don't have any preference as to what option is chosen, so long as it's addressed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Porter, move on. Number 5.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to update the authority that there was a sanitary sewer overflow on April 20th. It was in the RHM system. The address was 124 Bryn Mawr Avenue is where the overflow occurred. The cause was actually at 126 Bryn Mawr Avenue. Harry Robinson from Public Works contacted me, was very good with documenting the situation, getting site photos and filing a report to me the following day. So the cause of the issue was the manhole at 126 Bryn Mawr Avenue ended up just upstream from that manhole. There was a clog in the pipe, and the clog was caused by a root wad that worked its way into the pipe system adjacent to that manhole. The roots basically act like a net, so they were catching solids and paper and grease and all kinds of stuff in there until the point where it finally became completely blocked. It surcharged that line back to the next property, and that manhole presented the overflow adjacent to a small stream, which is a tributary to Fox's Run. So we did notify the DEP immediately as we're required and filed a written report to them 2 days following that. And we've not had a follow-up from the DEP to my knowledge.
We did not.
Okay,
And that concludes my engineer's report.
thank you. Operations Manager's report.
I have nothing other than what you've already covered.
Okay, Council, if I wander here, stop me. I've received a couple of inquiries regarding one specific contractor whom is doing work in Echo Valley. I had a conversation this afternoon with Mr. Porter. He has received some complaints from residents whom have hired the specific contractor. I also received an email from Mr. Neese, whom also received some complaints from residents in Echo Valley regarding a specific contractor. In discussions with council earlier on the subject, we've made it known to the residents that we really are not able to intervene. It is a contract between the contractor and the resident. However, it appears that it is not an isolated incident, that it is a growing incident, growing issue. I had a discussion, as I said earlier, with Mr. Porter this afternoon. It appears that they are moving and doing work and then jumping to the next job, not finishing the one that they started. And the discussion was what options we have to get involved. And we discussed that, if they're following the guidelines and they're executing on the guidelines and the applications are complete and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, we really don't have a lot of room. However, if there are some issues where they're not completing the job as outlined by our guidelines as the authority, I did instruct Mr. Porter to be alert, be attentive, and take the necessary steps. And in talking with Dave and talking with council over the last couple of weeks on this issue, I also think the township should be aware of the fact that there's a contractor operating in the township that is challenging residents as to their conduct and how they are handling the work that is being done. I don't know if the township, has any ability to do anything about it either. I don't know. But I just wanted to let the board members know that this is an issue. Maria Kane did bring a couple of issues to my attention. As I said, Mr. Niche brought some attention. Another resident stopped me and brought it to my attention. And then Mr. Porter had a couple of residents whom also brought it to his attention. So it is not a one-off isolated issue. It is a recurring problem. I instructed our engineer to make sure that the letter is followed. Specifically, make sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed. And I guess at this point, the township also should be aware of it, and they can look into it as to whether or not they have any ability to participate in making sure that this work is being done properly. So that's really all I have to say. If anybody has any questions, feel free. If not, we can move on. Okay, new business. Mike, 14.1, discuss the exemption.
Thanks, Joe. As earlier Rebecca said, I know there's some folks in the audience who are impacted by this, and I invite them to make any comments they wish. I was requested by the board to contact the various residents who are more than 150 feet from abutting a street in which a sewer line is located to obtain information as to why it would be a hardship in their particular circumstances to connect and be required to connect. And 14 residents contacted me. 3 of them contacted me to say they're going to connect. 2 contacted me, but just to say they wanted a hardship exemption, but did not give me any specifics as to why. I got back to them and said, well, the board needs to know why if you want to be considered. And to this point in time, they have not responded. But for the rest of the folks who did respond, and it was obvious that a number of them took a great deal of time, thought, and consideration to the situation. What I did was I sort of reviewed them all in a collective way. There was no single litmus test for one factor that automatically entitled somebody to a favorable consideration for an exemption. Rather, it would have to have been a situation involving multiple factors, and the kinds of factors that were encountered were the expense to connect, the topography, and impediments that would be encountered, such as rocks and wooded areas, expense that had been incurred to repair or replace a system done in reliance on the fact that they didn't have to connect, that there were a number of flag lots, and there were significant, I'm talking about in the hundreds of feet distance that would have to be traversed in order to complete the connection. There were residents who advised me that early on in the process, they had been advised, having been advised that they would not need to connect, were then questioned whether they had any objection to not being put in a situation where the trench would be dug so deep that they could ultimately connect by gravity. And because they felt they didn't need to connect, they said it doesn't matter to us. And now they're confronted with a situation where if they are required to connect, they're going to have the additional expense of a grinder pump and probably in that area, backup generator, as well as those additional costs, in addition to the multiple hundreds of feet that would have to be, a trench would have to be dug, or whatever method was used to make the connection. So based on those review and combination of factors, I am recommending to the board that they grant exemptions to the following individuals and properties. To Dr. Cooperstone and Mr. Clegg at 102 Springhouse Lane, to the Barnetts at 24 Woolman Drive, to Rebecca Kovacs at 104 Springhouse Lane, to the Old Fathers family at 208 Carriage Lane, to the Ripples at 316 Crum Creek Lane, to the Salvos at 31 Hunt Valley Lane, to the Walkers at 102 Boot Road. There's the situation of a Jeffrey Litton at 20. So that's my recommendations. There's a situation with Mr. Litton, Jeffrey Litton at 20 Woolman Drive. Yeah, I spoke with him on the 22nd. He provided an explanation and advised that he previously wrote a letter to Steve Neese at the direction of Dave Porter. He stated that he lives in a cul-de-sac, and to tie in that there would have to be dug a deep trench. So for him, like the other resident on Woolman, he would have to go out the back to Boot Road, which is more than 100 feet, 50 feet, and go through densely wooded, rocky areas. So he requested exemption. I told him to put it in writing. He said, I previously wrote to Mr. Neese. I said, could you send me that? And I haven't received anything in writing, but I did receive those verbal statements about what his particular situation is. I would think if they're true, and having been much more familiarized with the problems with the Woolmans through Mrs. Barnett's situation, he probably is somebody that also should be entitled to an exemption. The other thing, but in combination with what I'm saying in my recommendation, two items ought to be made a condition of it. One is I have concerns, legal concerns about a board granting certain relief in perpetuity forever, so that no other board in the future can make any changes or address any circumstances that may arise. And so the thought was that there should be some term or time limit placed on that. And it seemed the natural one was as long as the residents' on-site system continued to work satisfactorily, as documented by annual certifications, same as people who have the 10-year deferment are required to do, that as long as the system works satisfactorily, pursuant to those satisfaction, they're exempt. The second condition would be that they nonetheless pay the tapping fee. And the reason for that is twofold. One is, and again, it goes back to the Department of Environmental Protection's approval of the sewer project, because that approval included a financial evaluation to determine how reasonable it was financially that the debt incurred to build the system could be repaid. So as part of their approval, and in looking at the township ordinance, they approved it with the assumption that all these folks that we would be giving exemptions to would be required to connect and would therefore pay the tapping fee. So because we don't want to run afoul of DEP and come under their microscope with regard to the approvals we're giving tonight. That is, as well as the fact that, as has been discussed many times by this board and folks before this board, before this project ever happened, people's properties are financially benefited by the presence of that public sewer system. So those in my thought process were the two reasons for the recommendation that any exemption be included, the condition that the tapping fee be paid. So that's my recommendation to the board.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions of Mike before we put this in the form of a motion? My only question is, Mike, as you were talking, I was doing the math. So we had 14 residents, 3 connected. That leaves us with 11. 2 have
Two
not,
asked for it but didn't provide information.
right, so that leaves us with 9. And
Yep.
of the group you just gave me,
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. There was a gentleman that came in late, Nicholas Vastardis at 97 Boot Road, that I would include in that recommendation.
okay. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, including, I guess it's 20 Woman Drive, although you never got a written one. He claims he sent it to the township, but you feel based on the general knowledge of that area, that would still fall under the same category as the other residents up there. Is that correct?
That is
Okay.
correct, Joe.
Okay. All right, with that said, then I'll make the motion that we grant a waiver for those 9 residents as outlined by our council, subject to 1, them providing an annual inspection report that meets DEP standards, and 2, that they pay the tap-in fee of $69.50. 69.50. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Are there any other questions or comments on the motion? If not, all those in favor?
Before you take a vote, I know, I have a feeling, maybe I'm wrong, that there may be comments from the audience that would like to be heard before the motion is voted upon.
You do have 2 hands raised.
Let them in.
Hi, it's me again, Rebecca Kovacs. Michael, I appreciate everything that you said.
I'm sorry, which address are you related to?
104 Spring House.
Thank you.
Michael, I appreciate everything that you said, but I'm going to object to the statement about the 10-year period, because even in 10 years, specifically for the Clags and myself, we're still going to have all of those same challenges because,
Rebecca, I'm not trying to cut you off, Rebecca. The 10-year reference, under the ordinance of the township ordinance, there is the ability for a 10-year deferment for any reason, having nothing to do with a 150-foot requirement. And those people who elect that are required to pay a tapping fee and provide annual certifications. So when I was mentioning as a part of my recommendation that annual certification be provided, it was to say that that's similar to these 10-year deferments. The time period, it was, I think it was impossible to put a time period on applicable to everybody. So what I did was, as part of my recommendation, say that as long as your system is functioning, as shown in those certifications, that's how long you get the exemption. When it no longer functions, then no longer do you have the exemption.
Okay, but for clarity, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, thank you.
Okay, but for clarity then, let's say, I mean, we can provide that. That's not a problem because we do the certification every year as part of our community anyway, and we will continue to do that once this sewer project, was completed, and those of us still with the septic systems. But I guess my point is that even replacing at the time, if the system was to fail, it still would be cheaper for us to put in another septic system than to try to achieve what we would need to achieve to hook up to the sewer, because we're talking what, 25,000, let's just put inflation, 35,000 compared to 100,000. So we're still going to be faced with that issue regardless of the period of time.
Here, can I respond? Are you finished, Rebecca? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm not sure anybody can sit here and tell you what the costs are going to be to replace your system 20, 30 years from now, whoever is in your home. Because the requirements change by DEP and have changed over time, which has made it more costly currently to residents than it was 10 years ago. So when I talked about that we can't do it in perpetuity because we can't bind future boards to decisions, there's two sides to that coin. One is that they're not bound, so somebody can come back in and say, I want to extend my exemption. And you would have I presume whoever it would be would have the same would be given the same opportunity that you're being given here tonight and had been before to provide the situation that you're in. Now is the situation in your property going to change? Probably not.
Exactly.
But again, we can't bind future boards forever. And so if that happens 20 or 30 years from now, you come back in and you tell them what the deal is, and you'll have a fixed idea of what the cost will be based on current DEP requirements and regulations to be absolutely sure that what you're saying is true about this price variance between the two. That's my thinking.
Okay. When, I guess, is the next step that you all have to vote on the waiver? Or?
Soon as the two other comments are made, we're going to vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there someone else, Stephen?
Yes, Ms. Barnett,
Can you hear me?
you're very soft.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Barely,
Can you hear me now?
barely.
Can you hear me now? Can
No.
you hear me?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if there would be a consideration of waiving the tap fee from 24 when the town required a new system to put in like 2005, and we spent over $35,000 having that put in, and then to have an additional, what I'm going to call it, tax on us. I would have preferred that we were just overall not included in the number when we went to the DEP or whatever, that this property just wasn't included. So I'm just wondering, how could we be waived for that tapping fee?
Is this Mrs. Barnett?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
We can now. We didn't hear the beginning. I think you were, because we've had conversations, I think you were referencing the situation that occurred in 2005.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that was heard by the folks.
Okay. So what I'm asking is, the town required a septic system to be put into this property in 2005. Maybe knowing or unknowing that that the sewer system was coming in, and from our standpoint, again, we're saying we should have just not been included in the DEP number because of the fact that we've already spent over $25,000 on the septic system. So is there a way to be waived for that tapping fee? How could we be waived for that tapping fee? It just feels like it's a lot of extra taxation when you have a new system that's going to last a long time.
So you're saying the township told you to put a septic system in?
Yes.
Do you have documentation to that effect?
I can look to see if I can find it. I sent the receipt of the cost of the system to Michael, but I didn't send anything else, so I'll have to go back through my files.
Mike, I've lost track of time. 2005, where were we in the process of the 537 plan?
We weren't.
That's what I'm thinking.
We had not even gotten to the point where we looked at trying to partner with Aqua
Right.
to put a treatment plant along Bishop Hollow Road, much less
The comprehensive 537 plan that we actually got approved and have executed on.
Correct. That was, I don't, it wasn't quite 10 years later.
Right, that's what I thought. So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but when you put the system in, at that point in time, the township had not anticipated putting in a sewer system.
Okay, so I mean,
So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, you know, when you were told to put in the system, that was the only option, and there was no public sewer, and it wasn't even in the early discussion stages of putting in a public sewer system.
I believe that I mean, I know that I heard rumors of this system, so
Well,
I'm not sure.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
argue about the rumor part. I mean, I can't comment on whether or not there were rumors back in 2005. My point is that when you put the system in, your property was not excluded from any analysis because there was no analysis to be done at that point in time.
Right. So,
Right, so-
in the following analysis, I mean, could it?
Well, there were a number of residents who were updating or modernizing their on-site system in 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, whom are now paying the tap-in fee because they're getting the economic benefit of public sewer.
Okay, well,
So-
we're, yeah, okay, so, but we don't fall within that case. And so would you?
You're not getting any, you won't get any economic benefit with public sewer.
No, and we don't even have, we don't have public water. So, I mean, I'm just saying, we're one of those exceptions. If it had been brought forward during the planning process, would it have been eliminated? I know that I went to many meetings and I would talk to people about it, but we are such an exception of a case that it's not, there was no discussion.
The problem, Mrs. Barnett, I would suggest is, I presume you were required to, or whoever owned the home at that time was required to put in a new system because the on-lot system was failing. And at that point, there was no alternative. There was nothing in the books anywheres that showed that a public sewer system was going to be built.
Right. I'm just saying, when you did know you were going to build the system, could you have excluded some of those folks that, one, aren't going to have any benefit, and who you required to put in a new system within the last, 5 or 10 years?
No,
Well, it's because not all systems are going to fail. The DEP and court cases have discussed this, that you have to pay for the system at some point in time. And at some point in time, it's going to be more advantageous for some than it is for others. There's going to be no one time where it works for everyone. And so at some point, you have to build the system when the capacity is available to have the wastewater treated, and that opportunity came to the township, and they took advantage of it so that Echo Valley and Florida Park communities could get it. And the timing was totally up to factors that had nothing to do with people's current situation in terms of when they put in a system or didn't. So it's never going to be perfect that everybody's system failed at the same time, so they wanted to connect at the same time. There's always going to be folks, and then it falls back into why the DEP wants the mandatory connection requirement, because.
Sure.
Pardon me?
No, sure. I understand that. I'm just saying, how can you make an exception? I mean, maybe we pay half the tap-in fee or something. I mean, we're not hooking in. We have a system that's going to probably last 50 plus years. I mean, we're not going to have any benefit from this. So yeah, we'll be paying a fee, but we will never get a benefit from it. Not unless the only benefit we would get is if we ended up splitting our lot, because we have an over 2-acre lot, and we'd use that tap there. That's the only benefit we would get, that's there.
Well, every person I've ever talked to says the minute public sewer is put in front of your home, your property goes up in value. Whether you connect or not, for somebody who comes in after you and wants public sewer and not the hassles of having an on-site system and the concerns that come with it,
We have a top of the line system. We have had no problems with it at all. And somebody coming in here, because of the steep slope that we have, I mean, for them to hook up, they're going to be going like, how are we going to hook up? I mean, you saw that I sent you those pictures of what you have to hook up from Boot Road. It's over 250 feet going up at like 45-degree angle or something, through rocks, through trees. I'm not sure anybody would ever hook up. Except if we, for some reason, I don't know that we would ever do this. We took our lot, we split it in half, and then we have there's a house down on Boot Road. Our property actually doesn't touch Woolman Drive. It is on Boot Road, but we're at the top of the hill of Boot Road. We're at the top of the hill of Woolman Drive. We're at the very top of that hill.
So there is an economic value that you benefit if you so choose to subdivide your lot and sell off an acre and have a developer build a house.
If that happens.
Right,
So
but I'm saying, but you have an economic benefit by the system being in place today.
maybe, but if,
Well, obviously you do. It's not a maybe. If a developer comes in and wants to buy your lot and offers you a fair amount of money, you have the right to sell it.
I don't have a
And
lot.
you get an economic gain from it.
Are you committing that you would divide up my lot right now? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if you said you would, if you subdivide it, I'm not saying anything about whether you can subdivide your lot.
Well,
My
I can't-
point is-
I don't have that lot right now, so I don't have that
Okay.
economic value.
All right.
And if I have, so all I'm asking is, how could you,
I don't see how we're going to.
okay, you can't even like reduce the fee in half.
No. That I cannot do.
Okay.
Or the board can. I shouldn't say I can. The board can. I mean, we have a set fee. That's what DEP approved when we submitted when the township submitted the 537 plan. All the economics are based on the 6950 as the tap-in fee, and that's what makes this economically feasible.
But on the backs of somebody like us that we have zero economic,
Edibles too is one.
no.
Are there any other questions? Okay. All in favor, please say aye as to the motion that's been on the floor.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mike, please notify all those residents.
I will.
Okay. What else do we have for new business? I'm sorry, I've lost track of where. Request by the solicitor this afternoon.
That was it.
That was it. There's nothing else, Joe.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Old business.
Joe, there was the gentleman that called this afternoon, not
Right.
about his he lost his job, and he would like permission to pay his tapping fee in installments.
Okay. So that's going to be under old business. So I want to follow up. We sent out, council sent out a letter to approximately 60 residents in Echo Valley whom have not responded to the original letter, which was sent out in October of 2020. When was it? August, I'm sorry. August of 2020. Council received 2 responses out of the 60, leaving 58 not responding to council. So at this time, I'd like to ask Operations Manager, Mr. Neese, did you and or any of the staff at the township receive any response from the remaining 58 letters that went out to residents in Echo Valley?
I have not. I believe Rich is online. I would ask Rich if he received anything.
Yes, we have. So we have, since the letter went out, we had about 8 responses. All 8 have paid the tap-in fee, and that's it.
Okay, so based on the math, so we've got 60, 2 contacted council. That leaves 58. 8 have paid the tap-in fee. That leaves 50 residents whom have not paid the tap-in fee, nor have they responded to the second letter which was sent out.
Yes, that sounds correct.
Okay. And I believe that letter states that on the, and Mike, correct me, the 15th of May? Is that the date?
Yes.
Okay, so on the 16th of May, we're going to ask the staff to go ahead and begin to file the lien documents on those 50 residents who have not responded to the letter. Now, council did bring up that one resident has claimed a hardship case and has made a request to pay in installments. I know we at the board have spoken previously about working with residents in allowing them to pay some funds and then being on a payment plan. Mike, is there a recommendation? Did he offer a dollar amount and how it was going to handle, or was it just a general conversation?
Well, when I spoke to him on the phone, he said in 60 days he'd pay $1,000 and then he'd get back to me on when he'd pay the rest. Then he sent me an email that it said he'd start paying $300 a month to start with. So the number changed, in other words.
All right, so we're not getting 1,000 up front. We're getting, he's offering 300 a month.
Yep.
Okay.
Or if he gets a job and his financial situation changes, then he would make more payments, larger payments, or he'd pay the whole thing off.
So essentially it's 2-year payment plans, 23 months.
Yep.
On the math. Okay.
Yes.
Members of the board?
Does anyone else,
Chime in.
does anyone else ever ask us for something like that? Mike?
They haven't asked me. I don't know. Rich might know better.
I think we've gotten some requests. We just have said that that was not an option at this time, but I have not had somebody tell me they didn't have a job. And I don't know about Rich.
I agree.
You agree what?
Yeah.
Rich, what are you agreeing to?
With the fact that they don't have a job.
We've had requests, but we've not had anybody specifically say they didn't have a job, right?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. I understand. I just wanted to make sure that's what you were agreeing to, Rich.
No, I'm sorry.
So this is the first resident whom has approached us saying they are in an economic hardship due to unemployment, are offering to pay something over a period of time.
Well, could I ask Joe,
Sure.
our operations manager, Steve, there's the money that's available is set forth online for people who does
Need
that
through Penvest?
Yes.
Yes.
And as my understanding is, maybe that's incorrect, that that's not income related, that anybody can get it.
Rich, I don't know that answer. Rich, do you know that answer?
I do not.
All right.
I mean, we can check it out.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion. Because I will tell you this, having been on this board for many years, there have been instances where basically the authority served as a bank on projects and made arrangements for installment payments to be paid for things and for tapping fees. And that got the authority a lot of financial troubles.
Yes, I agree. Why don't we do this? If staff could double check Penvest to see if it's income related.
I think we could do that. I think that no matter what you do, you're going to, short of him coming through Penvest, I think whatever you would want to do, you would want to secure your.
Oh yeah, we would secure our position with a lien. Oh, absolutely. That's without even discussing that. We would secure our position with a lien for the full amount until the whole thing was paid off, if we go that route. Why don't we do this? Why don't we look into it? Let's see if Penvest is a income-based lending program or is it an home equity-based lending program? I don't know what it is. And then we can, if it is non-income based, then we can make a recommendation to this individual to go back and look at Penvest. If it is an income based, then we can take it up at our next meeting. So, because he did approach you, Mike, and he did have conversation with you, I would defer putting a lien on the property today until we get, or on the 16th of May, until we have the ability to clarify what Penvest guidelines are.
Okay,
And once we do that, you can tell them that, Mike, that we're looking at what Penvest guidelines are. If it is not income based, if it's equity based on the house, then we would be, it's on him now to go and solve the problem that way. If it is income based and they do not qualify under that guideline, then we'll take it up the next meeting.
all right.
Okay? Any other board members have any comments along those lines? Any other comments on this?
That sounds excellent. That's the right approach.
John?
I agree.
Okay,
I'm
All right.
sorry, I missed one thing.
go ahead.
So I know we have the one gentleman that's work related. What was the other one of the two? Is that
There's nobody else.
somebody-
It's just one individual. Oh, the other individual we resolved.
Oh, okay,
That's resolved.
okay.
So,
So I had 50 that Rich and I are working on putting a lien on.
correct. We had
Okay.
60 minus 2 is 58. 8 have already paid. So we have 50 whom on the 16th of May, we will initiate filing judgments.
Absolutely.
I
Okay?
just wanted to verify.
Yeah, that's what the math looks like as I wrote my notes. 60 minus 2, 58 minus 8 is 50.
Okay.
Okay? Is there any other old business? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So long, folks.
So long.